Welcome back to CNC Machining Made Easy. My name is Matt, and I apologize for the not having videos for the last 9 months. I moved to a new home. My other home was all set up, and it took me this long to get up and going. I do see some of your comments. I appreciate all the encouragement out there, and this channel again is based on learning how to be a machinist. I want to get back into it now that I'm in this new place. I want to keep it rocking and keep it rolling, keep my promise to you guys, get the basics out of the way. Sooner or later we'll walk into the machine shop hands-on right there seeing it happen, but there are some fundamentals we still need to get out of the way here, so I'll try to produce more and more of these as we climb up the ladder of this career of machining. Today's video is video number 7, Finding Your Zero. Now I'm going to do props, notebooks, whatever it would be to better describe what I'm trying to tell you. Finding your zero, again, to most of you, some of you who've been in machining, this is maybe something you've heard before, you understand, you can move on to the next video. But some of you haven't, so I want to share with you a few basic techniques, how to use edge finders, how to use indicators to find your zero. When I say find your zero, some people refer to it as your zero. Some people refer to it as your reference point, your absolute reference point. Some people refer to it as your datum. Datum, where's your datum, reference point, zero. What it is it's an absolute zero from your part. Now what I mean by that is, here, let's try this. I'm going to try this new software stuff here. Let's give it a whirl here. Absolute zero. There, let's try this. You see this coordinate system. I want to focus just a minute here on our X and our Y. Our X and our Y are with the machine shop on a vertical machining center. Your Y will move the table away from you and back, even on manual. And left and right will be the X coordinate. Okay, there's your coordinate system. Right where those two intersect will be your absolute zero for your X as well as your Y. I'm not going to focus on your Z at this point, which I'll share with you why in the near to be future. But let's just keep it simple. And there's your datum right there. Now, one thing about machining is you have a cube right here. You see that cube? You can put your zero wherever you want. You can put it out in oblivion if you want to. I mean, maybe you can see this cursor here. But you can put it in the corner there. You can put it in the corner there. You can put it down on the bottom. You can put it in the center. If there was a hole inside of that cube, you could put it in the center of that hole. All machine parts have to have an absolute zero. So when you tell it to drill a hole at 1 inch X, 1 inch Y, it knows from where. It needs a reference point. Everything is from where. Now, believe it or not, even the machine has a reference point. But we're not going to get into that right now. This is a part reference point. But some people will call them as offsets. You can get multiple offsets. And if you don't understand what I'm telling you right now, don't sweat it. No worries. We'll get into it. But this is offsets. These are 0 points. Okay? Now let's take this cube and set it up a little. There's a gray cube on the bottom right there. You can see the bottom left, or in our case, we're looking, make believe our head is the spindle in a vertical machining center. You're looking straight down at the part. Down at it, not across at it, down. Your head is the spindle. You can see the back left would be where your datum would be, or your reference point, your zero. Now, if I tell you to drill a hole at 1 inch X minus 1 inch whatever in that part somewhere, you have to know from where. And we're going from X0, Y0, which all parts will. Okay? But it's an absolute move. Now, how am I going to find the edge of that cube? You see? If I go back to this last slide right here, it has an edge on the Y and an edge on the X, right? How am I going to find that edge exactly with the line of my spindle? I'll share a little something with you. Little things that they taught me. This is called an edge finder. There's multiple ways to do it nowadays. They have probes. They have edge finders that have little beeps on them. But we're going to keep it simple. This is CNC Machinist Made Easy. Believe it or not, this unit right here is called an edge finder. And it's still well used today. If I had to guess, I'd say it's used more than the high standard probes. You have probes right now, which you get into in the future, or you run a machine and it just comes down and it blips, but you got to also tell it where to start a little bit and this and that a little bit. These edge finders are old, but they're still used today, I would guess, by the majority. Some people may disagree with that, and I may be wrong, but they're very user-friendly. They're an easy little inexpensive unit if you end up crashing them, and it only takes a minute. Let me show you how these edge finders work. And you get their name by their edge finder. You see that bottom area right there? I'm going to use a standard edge finder. Now remember, I told you from the beginning, these decimal points and fractions and mathematics is essential and critical in machining. So I'm going to start using terms. If you looked at the videos prior to this, how I shared fractions and how I shared decimals and how they use them. I'll try to keep them slow, but we're going to move it along here. The bottom of that edge finder right there, the small diameter in a standard edge finder, is about 200 thousandths. I'll get your pencil and paper, pause it if you want. It's 200 thousandths. That's the diameter of that, okay? There's a little spring in there. Let me show you. Here's another close-up look at it, you see? I'm going to take that thing, I'm going to turn my spindle about 12 to 1500 RPMs. And I'm going to creep that little diameter down there, and I'm going to move it toward the edge of that piece. Now that diameter, like I said, is 200 thousandths. And if that, and you can see the little crack right here. I don't know if you can see that. There's a crack right there. That's 200 thousandths right here. There's a crack and there's a spring in there. It actually will, I'm going to use my hands right here. That little bottom part will, when it's not running in the center, here, let me see if I can get this television thing. When it's not running in the center, it'll wiggle off to the side. You'll see it as soon as it goes off center, instead of just running perfectly true, it'll wiggle. It'll whoop, it'll go off to, it won't wiggle, but it'll go off to the side. And that is when you know the center of that spindle is exactly the radius, not the diameter of 200 thousandths, the radius, which would be what? 100 thousandths away from that exact edge. Don't give up on me if you don't understand. I'll should display it here in the next few slides. The large diameter below that crack is a 500 thousandths. A 500 thousandths diameter, and it's above that crack, so you could use 500 thousandths. You could bump that on the edge of the piece, and as soon as that shoop moves over about 12 to 1500 RPMs, boom, as soon as that moves over, then that 500 thousandths will be halfway. So you know you'll be 250 thousandths or a quarter of an inch exactly away from the edge of that part. It's a unique little unit there. I'm going to show you a slide right now. Hopefully this works. Now let me go back here. There's two on some of the newer ones, which the one I'm going to display right here on this small 100 thousandths. There's a flat on some of the newer ones. They put a little flat there, so not only can you see it move off to the side. If you listen real close, I don't know. Hopefully the video will get it. If it doesn't get it, it'll go click, 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 click really fast, and you'll also hear it click. But visuals are better. I use visuals all the time, and a lot of edge finders don't have that flat. So let me show you what I mean. It's a very good understanding. If a picture paints 1,000 words, a video will paint 1,000,000. Here, check this out. See that move? Now I'm going to move back, and I'm going to do it again. Watch it move. There. See that move like that? Okay. Now I can play that video again for you. I don't think the volume. See if I can get the volume on this thing. Maybe it ain't going to work. I'll have to play with this. It's not the end of the world. You get the idea. I want you to look at that real close up. I'm going to play it again for you. What I did it on a manual mill so you could see it better. I cranked the manual, and boop, it moved over. Right when it moves over, you stop. You're exactly 100 thousandths away from that edge. Okay? Let me play it again so you can just get a better understanding. And I'll show you how to put it down the center. There, you see it? Now I'm going to move it back again so you can see it again. Here it goes right there. You see? It's quite easy to see. It's a nice little unit there. Let me see if I can get it to the next slide here. Again, I'm new at these images. There we go. Oh, give me 1 second here. I'm going to get into. That's an indicator. That's a finger indicator. We'll get into that in a second. That's one way to do it, that edge finder. Don't worry about this indicator. I'll get into that right now in a minute. So when you see it move, what you do in a manual mill, it's like a drill press. You stop it, you pick up your head, and you zero your X or your Y, whatever edge you're trying to find. You zero it, and then you move it over 100 more thousandths in this case that you saw this video. 100 more thousandths, you call it 0 again. And bam, you're right on the edge of that part. Now you have your absolute 0 in your X. Now you do the same thing in the back jaw or the front jaw or wherever you want your 0. And you wiggle that bing and you come right up and you move it that 100 thousandths. Now you have your X and your Y. So now you can start telling your machine the coordinates you want to make slots or holes or whatever you want to do. That's one way to find the edge in the edge finder. Now edge finders can get more. You have a hole in a piece. I can explain it easier oftentimes than I can show it. Let's say you have a cube with a hole in it. I can drop that edge finder right down that hole. I can move any direction I want. It doesn't even have to be in the center. And as soon as that edge finder hits that and moves, I'll call it 0. Then I'll wiggle straight across, only moving my X until it gets to the other side of that hole. And boom, once that edge finder moves, I'll look at that number on the readout. I'll divide it by 2, and it'll bring me right back dead center to that center of that circle. Now I'm in the center in the X, we'll say. And I'll do the same thing in the Y, back and forth, move it right, split that number up, boom, right there. You're smack dab in the middle of that hole, smack dab. That's one most popular way to find your absolute zeros, is through the edge finders. Now, the second way to do it, oftentimes, is called these indicators. These indicators are more for sweeping in holes. I shared you the second example I had, how to sweep and hold in with an edge finder. Well, indicators, you can sweep in holes. You can find out highs and lows that you'll get in. But in this case, we're talking today about how to find your zeros. So you can take that finger indicator, put it in your chuck, and you can get it close with your eye and just manually turn that spindle around, watching where that needle goes. In the future here, I'll show you how to indicate a part hands-on in the shop. But you get the idea. That finger indicator will go around that hole, and you'll keep moving it in until the 0 will go one way or the other and wiggle one way or the other. You don't do it powered. You just turn it with your hand. And then back and forth one way or the other, one way or the other. As soon as that dial starts getting closer to 0 and closer to 0 and closer to 0, you know you're right smack dab in the middle of that part. When you swing that indicator around, you're going to be just right there on that 0, or at least it's going to hold still. Okay, now let's look at one of these. The reason I'm going to show you this right now is because these finger indicators have a lot more use than just trying to find the center of a hole. If you look at them 2 arrows right there, you can see, let me go back for a second here. You see where it says it's telling you that indicator in the smallest line will do 1/10 of a thousandth. We'll call it 1/10 thousandths, but in the machine world we often call it 1/10 of a thousandth. That gives you an idea how large that is. That indicator would have to move from where it is right now, 0, all the way to 2. That would have to move 20 of the small graduate lines, or just through the 1 and 2, just across your human hair. The average human hair is 2 thousandths. So one of those things is 1/10 thousandths of an inch. That is close. The human eye can normally pick up about 15 thousandths, which is extremely, extremely larger than this indicator. These indicators come in handy when you want to put a piece in the vise. And let's say they say, hey, it's got to be really level. It's got to be really level. You put that in that vise, you smack it down with your rubber hammer, and you go from one end to the other. Or let's say you face the top of that part and make a nice cut on it, and then they want you to turn it over, and they want you to indicate it flat. If you're sitting on a flat surface, you can go across the top of that, and you can watch that dial move, and you can tap it one way or the other with a snug vise, snug, lightly snug, and you can get that to read absolutely flat for multiple reasons. Maybe to make it parallel, nice and parallel, because the customer, the blueprint calls out for parallel. Maybe you can use it on not just the top, you can use it on the back. We use these to indicate vices in. That vise, that back jaw has got to run exactly with that X in your vertical machining center. And these tools are the ones that will put it right there for you. And if I'm getting ahead of yourself, how you're comprehending this, no worries. I will display this in the near-to-be future right at my shop, right here, hands-on, back and forth. I'll show you a fast way. When I was young in the trade 30 years ago, it would take me 10, 15 minutes to get so frustrated trying to indicate a vise in. I will show you how to indicate a vise in very, very quickly, very, very simply, and I'll explain how to do it as I walk through it. So that's what that indicator is telling you. It does that. Each one of them graduates is 1/10,000ths. And there it is, each one of the graduates. Now you can see right here how that could sweep that hole in. You go down there and you manually turn that spindle. I'm finding some of these